Welcome to This Is Why Musicians Need Therapy, the podcast where musicians talk about the mental stuff that everyone deals with, usually while pretending they're fine on stage. Full disclosure, they're not therapists, just musicians who've definitely needed one. So settle in, laugh with us, learn with us, and if you're trying to figure out this whole being a musician with feelings thing, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. I am one of your hosts, Rich Davidson, and of course, as always, I'm joined by Eric Forbes and Craig Henry. And so this is Mental Health Awareness Month. Actually, the month of May is for the entire month. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, and actually started in 1949, which kind of surprised me. I didn't think they knew about mental health in 1949. They did. They didn't say anything about it. No. But there you have it. And look, and guys. You know this, we've talked about it before, and we try to, yes, this is about musicians, this is about music and mental well-being, and I think that some of the things we talk about in terms of dealing with depression, anxiety, and whatnot, it's kind of universal because everybody deals with it. You know, we all know. Yeah. You don't have to be a musician. There's not an exclusive license on anxiety and depression when it comes to a musician. But I will tell you that I was kind of surprised by this. So, because I just thought about it and I'm like, well, that's our musicians more prone to mental health issues. I actually was surprised by the answer because they are significantly. There was a study, it was done in 2019 by it's a Swedish digital platform. It's called Record Union, and they did a survey, and they concluded that of their numbers, it was 73% of musicians struggle with mental illness. And that number goes to 80% when they focus on the 18 to 25 demographic. That kind of shocked me because that's much higher than the norm for, you know, if you take out the vocation equation. You know, like I said, everybody deals with it, but musicians deal with it at a significantly higher rate. And, you know, not only depression and anxiety, but, you know, suicide and things of that nature. You know, and look, there's lots of reasons for it. I mean, there's tons of reasons. It's, you know, and look, we know about this: irregular income. You know, having to have your music. We touched on it we touched on it a few weeks ago. You know, having to take jobs that aren't related to music to survive. You know. Obviously, you're in the record business. If you're not making a lot of money, you're probably not on anybody's healthcare plan. You know, yeah. You know, hours spent away from your family, sometimes hours, days, weeks, months. Yep. Craig, you talked about the being, you know, kind of tired of living out of a suitcase. That's another big thing. You know, road weariness, antisocial hours. We know about that from working at the piano bar. You know, go to work at 7 and don't get home until the sun comes up, and we're sleeping, or we should be sleeping when everybody else is awake. You know, and there's also, you know, substance abuse, all this sort of stuff. So there's lots of reasons for it. And I guess that did surprise me because I mean, I've known we all know musicians that struggle with various things. I just didn't realize it was that big of a number.
Yeah, it's hard.
I mean, yeah, I think, for sure, just to start, there's so many things to say on this topic. I don't really know quite where to begin, but I'll start with, I do think artists just foundationally are a bit more sensitive to things. I think that's just a trait.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you, but I want you to get back on track. That was one of the few non-environmental reasons for musicians experiencing such high levels of mental health issues, is because of exactly what you said. So please go ahead.
Yeah, and that comes from creating something, from whatever, artistic avenue you do, music writing, dance, painting, so many. But, creating something that's so personal to you is just a very sensitive thing, but to kind of go away from that for a minute, one thing I think a huge contributing factor that kind of encompasses a lot of different things is it's very easy as an artist to feel like an outsider to the rest of the population. A lot of people in your inner circle, your friends, unless you hang out with all other artists, but you're going to be you're going to consider yourself an outsider for the hours you keep, for your sleep pattern, for your lack of stability in your career. It's all outside the norm, and that I think, and that starts to create. Yeah, sorry, that starts to create a lot of thoughts start to stir in your head, and it comes from different things too. There's a lot of rejection that's really hard on a sensitive personality, and those are two of the biggest factors, I think, that feeling like an outsider just kind of starts the wave of thoughts that come to me.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because I remember something you said to me, Eric, some time ago. I can't remember. Somebody was asking you what you do for a living, and you said you're a musician, and they're like, no, well, what's your real job?
Yeah,
so that kind of highlights the fact that you're not. You're on the margin there, and that's a weird place to be.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is what you're touching on, Rich, is like chicken and the egg. Do you have, do you struggle with your mental health because you're a musician, or are you a musician because you struggle with your mental health?
Probably both, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's right, and it's a vicious cycle. It's interesting because I think, and maybe you've read some studies on this too, Rich. I feel like I've heard that like music is well, obviously, like we all know this, it's incredibly therapeutic. It's a known thing. Like I think singing is very, very regulatory for your nervous system.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
it's essentially very controlled breathing, which takes you out. It takes you out of that sort of autonomous, or puts you more into an autonomous state. Takes you out of that. No, I think it's the other way around. I don't know what I'm talking about. But the point is, I have a point. The point is that and despite that, I would agree. Like maybe at the level, maybe at a professional level, some of those benefits start to be negated by the pressure of income and success and fame and popularity and perceived, glory and all that kind of stuff.
Just one thing Craig said, not being able to understand how music affects the body, how music affects our mind. Think about, I know I've seen several videos of people in advanced stages of Alzheimer's, dementia, can't remember, their wife of 30 years' name. But if, I saw one guy, a jazz piano player, that could sit down and play. He had a guy that used to play with him came in and started playing the guitar part to a song, and he sat on a piano and played it just like he had always had. That part was in there, and he could access it. It came right back to him. It's just really, how do you, you just can never understand how music or art, and it sits within us,
And I guess too for the musician, you can see that happen. You can be a part of it, but I suppose that after a while, especially with all the external forces kind of pressing against you, it becomes harder and harder to appreciate that. Which just kind of robs you of that joy as well, and that's that makes me sad, because I don't know, I don't know if I'm going to explain it properly, but I've known for a long time that music carries with it it's just kind of an emotional, I don't know how to describe it. Well, it's very emotional. It can affect people, and it can affect me. But to be very honest with you, I don't like that, because it makes me feel, maybe it makes me feel vulnerable. Honestly, and this is going to sound egotistical, and I really don't mean it this way, but it makes me like everybody else, and I don't like that. And one of the, but I am, I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of gravitate to the technical side of things a little bit more, because, the technical side is devoid of that sort of vulnerability. I remember, there was a moment when it was at the club, and who's one of our servers who sang Dream One? What's his name? Ty, I think. Yeah, and so he was doing Dream One, and he hit the note, and he nailed it, and everybody was going nuts. And there was a thing happening, and I tried to focus on, there's a lot of reverb on this channel, and it's got to be off before the next song, and I got to stop hitting the strobe lights, otherwise everyone's going to go into an epileptic fit. And so I tried to focus on that without getting caught up in the moment, because I don't know, the moment makes me feel uncomfortable. And it's strange. Like, I want to be a part of it, but I don't want to be moved by it. It's like I want to be part of the discussion, but what I want to be is at the table where everybody's sitting at having the discussion, because the table doesn't give a shit what you're talking about, but you need to have it there so you can have that discussion. That's a weird way of putting it, but that's kind of how I feel about it. And I think that actually does make me a little sad too, because I do hear songs, moments within music that affect me, and I don't like it. But
wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I definitely understand the concept of being uncomfortable, being the same as everyone else. I get that, and I do think.
Well, it does. I know that sounds terrible, and I don't really. I guess that's kind of just the best way to put it. But I don't mean everybody else sucks and I'm great, because it's probably the exact opposite. But yeah, it's weird how I feel, and I've recognized that the past few years. It's very. I'm not at ease with it. I'm not happy with it, but.
Well, I think there's also kind of a little belief, that the artistic types, generally speaking, tend to be kind of the quote weirder types, right? They are harder to talk to. They're and like I consider myself pretty normal in some ways, but there's some ways, like, and I'm bringing back to this past weekend, my high school reunion, my wife was laughing at me because I'm trying to talk to these people that I haven't talked to in 20 years. And it's like, sometimes it's like, there's this picture of, there's this picture of Elon Musk riding a roller coaster, and he's sitting there with expressionless, and then the caption is like, Elon, so the humans, do they like this? And then it says, yes, Elon, the humans like it. And then it goes, Elon, well, I will like it as well. You know, I felt like a robot that was malfunctioning, trying to like have small talk with these people, and I said the same thing to like 3 groups of people. It's like, so do we have a good turnout for this year? They have no idea. Like they're organizing the party, but like I would walk away.
Yeah,
I would walk away, and Annie would be like, "Oh, babe, God, you gotta
small." Yeah,
but I'm just not. That's not something I'm good at all. You know, and that's just
and small talk is exhausting. It just is. And that's one thing I appreciate about our discussions. It's seldom small talk.
Yeah,
we don't. I just can't do it. It's just it's awful.
Well, there must be, because that reminds me a little bit, Eric. I feel like there's just been a lot of stuff that's come across my radar recently about just sort of mental health, and I'm not sure how you really put it, but like, spectrum, I don't know if disorder, forgive me if that's horribly un-PC, but you know what I mean? Like ADHD, autism, anything in that realm.
Gifted ADHD,
Yes, indeed, yep. Some people like that. And that's I don't know if your research showed any of those statistical overlaps, Rich, but because I'm full of I'm like, oh man, why did I say that or this and that, and I feel like sometimes I just don't quite know how to fit in socially. Now, so as far as a correlation or causation with mental health, I'm sure there's some link there, but I think that's I feel like that's that awkward artist, that awkward musician, that's sort of part of the breed,
Yeah, I kind of jokingly said it some time ago. And look, the people that I work with are, I've yet to meet anybody that was, not nice, but they're not my people. They just aren't, and for as just unruly and sometimes frighteningly dangerous as musicians can be sometimes, I feel far more comfortable around them than I do with anyone else, with the possible exception of my wife. And my wife sings, so I guess technically she's a musician.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, I just there is a certain level of comfort in being around similar types. Certainly not to say that we're better. It's just where I'm more comfortable. I guess I get some of the things that are going on where, as you've said it, Craig, and of course you said it, Eric, about this weekend. It's just very hard. It's very hard to fit in with people that just aren't on that same wavelength. And once again, it's not about being smarter. It's not about being better. And I want to drive that point home immediately.
Yep.
But there's, that's your tribe, that's your crew, and there's something about it that makes me feel comfortable. That's one of the reasons I miss miss doing what I used to do, is because I was around people that I was comfortable with.
Yeah, well, I think that comfort comes from common interests and shared experiences, right? So we can, we're comfortable with each other because we can talk about music, we can talk about gigs we've done, things we've felt, because we, all know that we've all been there, but, I can't relate or feel comfortable talking to someone about, like a real estate deal they just did or something. Like I'm not, that's not something I can talk about, so that's how that comfort comes. You have to be around people with, similar interests.
But we do break the stereotypes a little bit because Eric, you and I talk a lot about sports, and Craig does construction. So I mean, it's not just about, hey, that's a nice piano or a great guitar. No, honestly, I don't like talking about my gear I remember hearing an interview with Edge, the guitar player from U2, and he's like, yeah, I'm not the kind of guy to go around and talk about gear. I just don't like talking about it. I'm kind of with him on that. But yeah, I mean, there's a certain comfort level, and it's not surprising why musicians tend to move in similar circles, because it is difficult to relate, and not that people are being rude or they don't care. Maybe that does happen from time to time, but I think there's a certain level of comfort when you're around. I don't want to, I guess, for lack of a better term, like-minded people. But yeah, it's. Some of the stuff I kind of glazed over. I mentioned it, but I found the number. We talked about 77% of musicians struggle with mental health issues. But according to, I'm trying to see the actual study. I can't find it right now, but it was a study by researchers Sally Gross and George Musgrave from the UK. 77% of musicians suffer from mental health issues. That is compared to only 22.5% of the general population. Okay, that is a significant number. And I guess one of the things that I really would like to drive home about this is, and it's kind of it's something that's kind of important to me, because we've talked about this before. I grew up in, somebody's calling me. Very nice. Guess I won't take that call. God, who would call me? I thought,
I'm working here.
I didn't turn my phone on silent.
You probably need an extended warranty.
I do.
That's probably you should probably take that call.
No, but there is somebody has an $80,000 loan for me. So, well,
oh my God, I'm getting it every day.
I guess my money problems are over. I don't even want to know what kind of information they want, but $80,000 is $80,000. So, but no. I've touched on this before. I grew up in a generation that really didn't talk a lot about mental health, which is surprising that Mental Health Awareness Month started in 1949. Yeah. We really didn't talk about it, and I don't think it was done out of malice. I don't think anybody knew much about it, and but basically what we were told is to kind of suck it up and get over it. And while that can be good advice from time to time, it's certainly not a one-size-fits-all solution to those problems. So, but I live in a day and age where mental health is a big topic, and it's important. And there's the great thing about today is there's so many avenues that somebody can take to get the help that they need. It used to be you had to have health insurance. You don't have to have health insurance anymore. There's lots of places you can get virtual counseling for like $20. There are so many different avenues because, excuse me. Well, I mean, anxiety and depression, especially when you're talking about all these external factors, can lead to some very dire situations and unfortunate outcomes. And I would hope that everybody knows about the options that are available to them, but I think maybe not everybody does, and that would probably be the biggest point that I would want to drive home today. Is look, if you're struggling with something, there's help out there, accessible help. It doesn't have you don't have to spend a small fortune.
For sure, it is accessible. And on the tougher side of it, it is it is a lot of work to improve your mental health, and it's ongoing work that can't stop. And it starts with, just like addiction, it starts with a no more type moment in you that causes you to take action to fix it. It has to start with your willingness to fix it. It has to start there, and you have to commit to doing work. I fully feel like you can change your inner monologue with just constant, consistent work. Now there are some things that are different, but just general depression, anxiety, things I deal with. There's like you said, Rich. There's so many resources. There's people you can talk to that can help you create a plan. And it's something that just, like I said, it takes a commitment to consistent work. And I have things that I try and do every day that to try and optimize my mood and my feeling about things, and some days I miss, and some days I can't get myself out of a hole I'm in. Some days I can. So it's
good days,
it's a lot
and
of
bad
work.
Days. I battling against my upbringing in this respect, but I'm trying to have more grace for myself and for others too, because I'll always probably want to go back to that. Just stop whining about it, because that's what we were told. But I know that's not a good solution. Sometimes it is. Very, very seldom. But sometimes it is a good piece of advice. But most of the time, no. It requires a more nuanced approach, and it requires.
Let's try and say, as sensitively as I can. Sometimes, there's almost a desire to stay in that low place than try and, really take a step and try and take control. So it's a step you have to take, and then once you do, you can. There's a lot out there to help you.
Yeah, I maybe it's less so now, because I do think we are talking about this more and more as a society. But yeah, like for me, I feel like there was always a sort of a stigma growing up. I guess I was aware of psychologists and psychiatry and the help that you could get, but that was for, I don't know, this is going to sound blunt, but like weirdos or whatever. That's what we thought. That wasn't for me. That was for other, like, or maybe people with like really severe struggles. But man, have I learned as I've gotten older that it's like therapy for everyone is beneficial. Like, it doesn't matter what your background is. A therapist can really help you understand why you think the way you do, and it's really eye opening. I mean, I've had therapists, none in Australia when I lived there, but in the last 10 years or so of living in the States, I've had quite a few that have been really helpful. But that's also saying something, like that inherent tendency to not seek mental health help is in itself an indicator that, like, I probably really can benefit from it. And there's a cultural thing too. I think it's similar to what you were saying, Rich, growing up. In fact, I had a friend of mine who, like, his if ever he was struggling, his parents would just say, just eat some Wheat Bix and brush your teeth and you'll be fine. And Wheat Bix is like a famous Australian breakfast cereal. And I've harped a bit about this on the podcast before, but that Australian thing of like, nah, we're all struggling. You just put up with it, mate. No, you'll be fine.
That's more like a cultural thing, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think so. And look, it might be changing. I'm not sure, but I do know that I do feel like. In fact, I remember thinking as a kid, we always thought like it was very American to have a therapist,
That's brilliant.
Because TV shows would talk about it a lot or whatever, or it was always in movies and stuff. And I feel like as Australians, we're like, why does everyone have a therapist?
You don't need a therapist. You have your breakfast cereal and
that's right. We got Wheat Bix and toothpaste. So I've struggled with that my entire life. And I'm like you, Eric. I try to have practices that can help me, and some days I'm better than others when I actually implement them. But it's help is out there, and it's take some time for yourself. It's not self-indulgent. It's not a pity party. It's not you're not weak. You're not it's.
I think we kind of have this saying around my house that we could all use therapy. All of us, and we say it kind of jokingly, but it is true. It is true, and I just, I don't know. I guess as I get older, it bothers me more when I see young people, especially artists, who so many of them take their own lives, and I just think. It's funny too. Because I know I've referenced it many times, but I will again. In Bono's book, he was good friends with Michael Hutchinson's lead singer for NXS.
Yeah,
and they were together in the south of France. How nice for them. At the time, the news broke that Kurt Cobain had taken his own life. Yeah. And they were just kind of pondering about that because both of them apparently were big fans of Nirvana, surprisingly. And they were like, if he had just hung on a little longer, what would that have been like? And ironically, Michael Hutchinson took his own life a few years later. So it's, lack of fame, plenty of fame. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't.
That's what I was going to talk about. Like what are the foundations of these feelings? From an artist's perspective, is it feelings of inadequacy? That cause the depression, and not being as successful as you feel you should be, not being as successful as society feels you should be. Are those the kind of foundation feelings that everything springs off of? But then you have plenty of stories of musicians that have achieved the pinnacle of success that still can't shake a deep depression, of just a feeling of I don't know.
I used to not understand it, and maybe I don't understand it to the depths that they do. But I guess we've all been exposed to it over the years. When you see somebody, who has achieved so much success, and they end up committing suicide or something like that. I used to think, how could that happen? And these days, like, you can't outrun that stuff. You just, money, success, fame. It's not gonna deal with that. The money and fame is great, but there are things that it's not going to do anything for. And in fact, I guess maybe in some cases it makes it worse. And, that whole thing of, they left a suicide note. Well, that doesn't typically happen. So really, we don't know. And the sad thing is we'll probably never know what got him to that point. I mean, we look at a guy like Robin Williams, a guy who by all accounts was, just maybe a little too much, but he killed himself, and what I don't know what drove him to that. We can hear stories from people who knew him, but maybe they never knew. It's very possible that they didn't. It's very possible the only person that knows is him, and he's not here to tell that story. So, and I guess we could use those as cautionary tales, because I just, like I said, as I get older, I hear stories of young musicians. Some I know, some I don't, who've taken their own life, and it makes me sad, and it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't. As Eric said, yes, it's a commitment, and it's work. And
and you have to be careful to not give it a finish line.
Exactly.
Now, wake up and okay. I'm good now.
No, yeah, but you're on that. But you're on the path. You're on that path.
Exactly.
And just I would rather people struggle with the work rather than giving up in that respect. I'm being selfish about that, but it bums me out when I hear that. It just makes me sad, because I do think to a great extent it is avoidable. And as Craig, as you said, I think we're coming out of the stigma of that, which I'm very happy about.
Well, and look, the more people talk about it, obviously, the better. There was a podcast I listened to actually a week or so ago that was they deal with lots of different topics, but this particular episode was talking about mental health too, but particularly the growing gap between men and women, and how I think suicidality amongst men is really skyrocketing, and a proportion, again, I mean, gosh, and so it would be interesting to see that overlap, the proportion of men, male musicians too, but they were sort of talking about how a lot of men are struggling because of gender norms for the better that are changing. Obviously, it's important to have equality and equity. But in doing so, a lot of men are getting left behind, and they don't quite know where to fit in anymore. They don't quite know what their role is anymore. And I wonder if that's so. If there's a pertinence there with musicians, it's you don't quite fit in. We touched on this, but like that feeling of not belonging, that's we're a very social species, and if you feel like an outsider, that really kind of goes against your genetics in a way. So I wonder if it's just fitting, not being able to fit in, not knowing your place, not knowing, and then I'm sure you then gravitate to art and you express, and that can be healing, poetry, writing, painting, dance, all of it.
Yeah, art.
But perhaps, perhaps it's just for people that take their own lives. It's not enough. And you try drugs, you try alcohol, you try everything.
Yeah.
You try everything to feel something, to feel like you belong, to reintegrate,
and then those things stop working, because invariably they will. And it's just
and I think I feel like my personality is someone that can be very easily drawn to external influences, and I think a lot of that is at the expense of not looking inwards. When you start looking inwards, it can be rough. It can be messy. But I'm not saying that that's your answer at all. It's obviously, as you said, it's different for everybody. But it's a struggle.
Well, sensitive personalities crave dopamine rushes. That's that's what they're going to seek, and that takes you to a lot of unhealthy. Potentially unhealthy things. So.
Yeah. Well, I think we will go ahead and leave it there. But yeah, please. It doesn't matter if you're a musician or not. If you're struggling with anxiety, depression, look for some help. And there's plenty of options out there. Don't let it run rampant, and don't think that you can necessarily get it under control, because chances are you won't. And that's not a good thing.
Don't think no one cares. Don't think no one cares, because they do.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, well, I think this show, it was all about the fact that, it's been on my mind a lot, not just for musicians, but for people in general. Although, like I said, I was surprised how many musicians do suffer from that. I guess I was surprised by the number, but in retrospect, I guess I'm not terribly surprised. But yeah, just reach out. Know that people are pulling for you, and people want to see you see you get through this and come out the other side and better. And it may be a lifelong struggle, but it's worth the struggle. So yeah, fellas, I think that's all for today. I appreciate all your input. I think you guys brought some really interesting things to the table, and I appreciate you guys. So for everybody listening, you can check us out on Spotify or YouTube. Click the subscribe or the follow button. Leave us a comment. Share it if you like, and we'll be happy with that. So, and
let us know if there's anything you want to.
Yes,
talk about too.
Actually, that's good. I forget that every time. Yeah, if you guys have some ideas, let us know. We'd love to incorporate that into the show. New topics are always good. So, for myself, Eric Forbes and Craig Henry, we'll catch you next time.